Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News. It's Thursday, September 29th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Han-daeun. A parliamentary audit is being held up for a fourth straight day due to a standoff between the ruling party and the Assembly Speaker. Just a handful of the 12 parliamentary committees that oversee the audit have convened today. Most convened with the attendance of opposition party lawmakers, but none from the ruling party. Meanwhile, the ruling Assembly Party has asked the Constitutional Court to rule on whether Assembly Speaker Chung Se-gyun violated the party's rights by going ahead with last week's vote on the dismissal motion for the Agriculture Minister past a midnight deadline and in spite of a Assembly Party protest. The ruling party also filed charges with the Supreme Prosecutor's Office against Chung for abusing his authority as Speaker. A North Korean soldier has defected to the south by crossing the land border between the two Koreas. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said Thursday the soldier crossed over the military demarcation line at around 10 a.m. It's the first time since June of last year that a North Korean soldier has defected in this way. The soldier was unarmed and there were no clashes in the process. The military is questioning him about his reasons for defecting. We'll bring you updates as we learn more. The United States is urging countries to reduce or even completely cut ties with North Korea in the wake of its continual provocations. Washington also appears to be actively investigating Chinese companies thought to be doing business with Pyongyang in violation of international sanctions. Kwon So-ah has more.
The United States is pressing countries around the world to downgrade or sever their diplomatic and economic relations with North Korea. Speaking at a U.S. Senate committee hearing in Washington on Wednesday, Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russel said U.S. embassies are urging other countries to condemn North Korea's recent nuclear test and take additional actions to pressure the regime. Russel added, as of last Sunday, 75 countries have denounced the test, and several others have canceled or downgraded planned meetings or visits with North Korean officials. He also said there has been progress in efforts to implement UN Security Council sanctions on the North, including the expulsion of its diplomats from Bangladesh, South Africa, and Myanmar. Speaking at the same hearing, the State Department's Sanctions Policy Coordinator Daniel Fried implied that Washington is continuing its investigation into Chinese entities that may have links to the financing of or provision of materials for Pyongyang's nuclear and missile development. He didn't elaborate on specific probes that may be ongoing. Fried said it would be useful if Chinese banks and firms understood the risks of dealing with North Korea. He also mentioned the U.S. is looking into North Korea's coal trade and the country's state airline Air Koryo, as it has curtailed the carrier's activities and restricted its ability. Earlier this week, Washington put Tandung Hongxiang Industrial Development Company and 4 of its officials on a blacklist for acting against sanctions on North Korea, as it allegedly assisted North Korea's weapons program. It marked the first time the U.S. slapped sanctions on a Chinese company. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Korea's biggest sales festival kicked off today. In addition to department stores and major retail outlets nationwide, some 200 makers of home appliances and even automakers are offering consumers hefty discounts. The Korea Sale Festa is also making use of cultural events to boost the shopping spirits of tourists from home and abroad. The Culture Ministry says 55 cultural events, large and small, ranging from fashion shows and parades to theatrical plays, are being held across the country. 17 traditional markets, including Seoul's famous Namdaemun Market, will also hold cultural events alongside their big sales. These will include international food festivals and cooking contests. On Friday, a K-pop concert will be held in the Samsung-dong in southern Seoul, marking the start of the cultural festivities. The Korea Sale Festa will run through the end of next month. OPEC has agreed to slash output for the first time in 8 years after 2 days of round-the-clock talks in Algeria. Oil prices got a healthy bump on news of the surprise breakthrough. Park Jong-hong reports.
The oil cartel has reached a consensus that unless they cut production, petroleum prices will not likely go back up. Two sources within OPEC were cited by the media as saying that the oil-producing nations are estimated to collectively reduce their output to 32.5 million barrels a day from the current 33.24 million. But the exact reduction amount won't be announced until at least November 30th, when OPEC meets again in Vienna, and after a committee is formed to study how to carry out the cuts. Oil prices surged upon news of OPEC's decision. Brent crude spiked almost 6%, nearing $49 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate jumped 5.4% to slightly over $47, its highest point in 3 weeks. The meeting in Algiers didn't include Russia, which is the world's largest producer of crude oil. Although it isn't a member of OPEC, sources say Moscow has been involved in talks about jointly reducing production. The 14-nation cartel controls over a third of the world's crude output, and slumping oil prices have been a massive toll on their economies. Park Jong-hong, ARIRANG News.
And that does it for now. I'll be back with more headlines at 4 p.m. Korea time. See you then.